What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of a Thinking Man's podcast. If you're joining us on YouTube, please subscribe to the Muscle Media Network channel. Like the video, leave us a comment, let us know what you think, share the video with a friend, ring the bell so you're notified every time we drop a new video. As always, this episode is brought to you by Kodiak Bodybuilding Apparel. Train hard, die strong. Thanks to the owner, Chris, for supporting us, supporting the channel. And you guys can check his apparel out, the Kodiak Bodybuilding Apparel, on kodiakbodybuildingapparel.com. I'm with my man Tommy Styles, and we are going to do we're going to touch on a couple different topics. We got some different questions and topics that we're going to touch on. So Tommy, I'm gonna throw one at you first, and we're gonna let you roll. This was actually something I got asked this in a DM. I'm not going to say who it was, but I'm going to let you ponder it out loud here. So somebody asked me, first cycle, 250 milligrams one time per week. Is this the best way to do it? I've always been natural, and I'm working with a coach, and this is what he recommends.
Well, analyzing the question, I mean, best way to do it is going to be subjective. So in that scenario, never done anything, 250 milligrams of test a week. Currently, you're doing 0 milligrams of test. So I like the approach of less is more. I've seen people jump right into 500. My first cycle was 350 of test. So the only thing I would probably not do is I would probably break up the injections. If you wanted to do daily, that's fine. Even if you just wanted to do twice a week, split the dose in half, that's probably going to be better than one big shot and then 7 days without. Assuming it's test cypionate, that you're going to really be, your levels are going to go up with that big bolus. And then by that 6th, 7th day, you'll be back down here. So to give yourself a better flow of your hormones, you want to break that up at least into twice a week, but dailies would be the most consistent. But we don't have any, I don't have any info on like how much musculature he's got, how long he's been training, all that. So I think that's a pretty respectable, starting point. 250, make as much progress as you can on 250, and then, probably escalate from there.
I did have a little bit more context because I knew the person's kind of situation that sent it to me. So I probably should have given you that first, but as a general rule, I agree with everything that you were saying. This guy is like, I think you said like 13 years into training or something, and he's still a relatively young guy. And so I kind of looked at it from a different approach. The first thing that jumped out at me as a red flag was the 1 time per week. I'm with you on that. I think that if we're talking about frequency, that's the worst way to do it. And I would just say the more frequently that you can abide to a consistent schedule, the better it is. Whether that's daily, whether that's every other day, 3 times a week, even twice a week is going to be better than once a week, like you said. I had a different approach, and I just said to this guy, because the thing is, now I wouldn't say to go start on a gram, but 250 to me, like I've seen guys on TRT get 250 milligrams a week, and it puts their total testosterone at like 740. And it's like, yeah, okay, if the goal is to be super physiological, like, and you're, putting exogenous hormones in your body, you're buying it, you're going through the process of putting a needle in your body basically every day. Like, the goal should be to be super physiological, like get results that you've never gotten before. And I don't know that we could guarantee that with 250. Now, you could play it conservative and start on 250, get your blood done in 4 or 6 weeks. That would probably be the best conservative route to go. But I just felt like best case scenario, this is going to put him at like the higher end of normal still. So if there's nothing else in play, I probably would do more. Now, if then like, I've heard people say like, oh, like test is best, or, test only for a first cycle. Which if that's your approach, that's fine. But I don't think multiple compounds just because it's your first cycle is like taboo or no can do. Like I think that the devil is in the dose, the total dosage. So at that point, like I don't know, man. I kind of like mixing and matching like some DHT for a first one. You don't know how guys, especially as a first cycle, you have no idea how they're going to respond, like in terms of gyno or aromatizing. I think DHTs are safe in that aspect, and then also it's not like a 19 nor where there might have like crazy mental side effects. So if it was me and that was the case, it's a guy that's been training a long time, made a lot of natural progress, still has good natural testosterone because he's a younger guy. I would say make it worth your while, and I would probably do something like 200 tests, 200 mass, something like that. But there's a million ways that you could do it. So, in terms of is this best, like you said, that's almost impossible to say.
Yeah, I mean, unless I directly know the person, the client, the situation, all the context, then it's like, as a blanket statement, I would put out that like, yeah, 250 is a great starting point for people who are thinking about getting into it. Now, I've had clients that I've started with multiple compounds and at higher doses because their situation was different. They'd been banging for years already. They'd made a lot of natural progression. They'd even done natural shows. So it was like, okay, I'm just going to kind of skip that because we don't need to baby step our way up based off where you're at and what the individual want. Like they were more than willing morally, and it wasn't a matter of like, I'm scared when you start with just a couple 100 milligrams. I was probably pulling them back and saying like, well, you want to go for the moon, so let's just calm it down and go right here.
And financially too, what are you capable of? Because the last thing you want to do is start a cycle and do it for 6 weeks and then you have to bail on it because you can't afford it, or you can't afford the food or the coaching that goes along with it. So
That's
there's a lot of
the most important factor.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but like is finances. Like,
yeah.
Do not be one of these people who has enough money to get yourself a couple vials of something and then run out of money and then just have to go off cold turkey. That is the worst scenario you can put yourself in. So don't throw the kitchen sink. I mean, there's multiple reasons not to do that, but know your budget, know what you're working with, find a way to make extra money, because once you dip that toe in the water, you're in. You don't just run something for 4 months and then, well, I'm out of money. It's not like pre-workout powder. Like you will go through a hormonal crisis, and mentally it's not easy either. So make sure you have your ducks in a row before you make this commitment.
Yeah, those are all good points. All right, you got one?
Yeah, so this is actually relevant to me right now a bit, just because I'm in the process of it. But how do you deal with the mental switch of coming off cycle and cruising?
You said this to me one of the first podcasts that we ever did, and it honestly changed how I looked at my own cruises. And you just said like, I don't even acknowledge that it's happened. Like, and like you're just not going to allow that to factor into it. So I'm just finishing up one here myself, and I'll be totally honest with you guys. I'm always honest. When we do this show, it was my first cruise in a while. I ran the longest cycle that I've ever run. I'm trying to be a national contender at heavyweight. So I put my foot to the pedal longer than I ever have before. Now I'm starting to prep. I'm going to be competing basically all through the entire season, through the whole year next year. So it was a time that I talked with Justin Harris, the guy that's my coach right now. He's helping me. He was like, in order to be fresh over the long term, I think we should do this now. I listened. And depending on the compounds that you're running, depending on the esters, will determine when you truly start to feel hormonally different. I was running a lot of short acting esters. And so I felt like I got dropped off a hormonal cliff the first week. Like my sex drive went down the tubes. Erection quality sucked. And my pumps were like pretty much non-existent. Now I kind of got regulated like the second week, and then I actually felt really good. But the big thing, like, that's all like outside of the gym stuff. In the gym, my mentality didn't even change it. And I just didn't acknowledge it. I didn't think about it. I didn't go into the gym defeated, thinking, oh man, I'm on a cruise. I hope I can just not lose too much, or any of these things that I've had. We all as coaches hear things from clients like, oh, like, I lost some reps and some load on this top set, but like that's to be expected on a cruise. Like, no, it's not to be expected on a cruise. If you expect that, then yeah, it's going to happen. But if you just tell yourself you're not going to allow it, then you just don't lose that top end training performance. Now, I think 100% the pumps are not going to be the same. They're not going to last as long. You're not going to feel as full blown, but that's all a feeling. If we're talking like objective training performance, it really shouldn't change. And that's just, I think it just starts with the mind. I think just telling yourself that you're not going to allow it, or you just don't even acknowledge it in terms of training wise, that needs to be the big thing. Now, I'll throw in a caveat to that. It will depend on the length of your cruise as well. Like if you do a 12-week cruise, weeks 8 to 12, you're probably going to start to feel training performance, or even just aggression in the gym probably not be where it was, because, that makes sense. If it was just the same all the time and you could go off for 12 weeks and feel no different, well, then what would the point of being on be then? But yeah, I think the big thing is just mentally. And I think you said it best. You're just not going to allow it.
Yeah, no, that's generally how I, approach it with clients and myself. Full transparency, I haven't had a cruise in a long time. So, mine, I'm going on 8 weeks into it. TRT, 150 milligrams a week, nothing more, nothing less, a little bit of GH. That's it. So, and it's going to be like that for several more weeks for me. But, all of the things you said about training before, like I'm all those weeks in and I can still train. I could still do what I've done on cycles strength wise. Now I might not have the endurance, but I can touch top end weights. I might feel more resistance mentally, and like the bar might just feel heavier on more days than when I'm on a cycle, obviously. And then it just becomes a matter of like grind your teeth, mental fortitude, just keep showing up. But the thing I want to touch on in terms of this question is the mental component of how do we feel in our bodies. So, as we've talked about on this pod, like goal my whole life's been to be huge. That's all I care. That's all I've thought about, is like being bigger. A bigger human is all I've wanted to be for more years that I've been alive than less. So for people who, clients who've expressed that they feel small or this or that, like, I'm not going to tell you you're a pussy for feeling that. I'm not going to make fun. Like, I feel that every day right now. I feel small. I was considering going to nationals next week, being with Turner and his guy that he's got in the supers, and just being around that atmosphere. I love going to nationals. But, obviously I have a dog now, and takes a lot of time, and I don't want to board him because I just got him and all sorts of other shit. So I'm not going. But also a thought that was in my head was, man, I don't want to be around a ton of bodybuilders and people in the industry who I respect, because I'm small right now. Now, if I logically step out of that, I'm still over 250 pounds. I'm still a very large human in public. I still get random questions in the grocery store, and you know, if I walk the dog, I'll get some sort of attention. I know that I'm not small, but it's just how I perceive myself based off how I feel. I feel absolutely deflated. The pumps, which you mentioned, they're there, but they're not there. Like it's like non-alcoholic beer. When you've had alcoholic beer, like one of them's better than the other. So, you know, just to give transparency to people coming up or people who might have not done a lot of cycles, like that's it. You're going to feel small when you're off. You're supposed to. You know, you're even the way clothes fit. Like I was busting out of a 4X, you know, 5 weeks ago. Now a 4X is kind of loose on me again. And it's like, those are those little things that my brain notices. And it's just part of the game. That's like the mental ups and downs. This is why I'm always talking about mental fortitude. You have to be ready for this to get into this. You know, you're wanting to be a national level contender. I'm wanting, like, if you want to climb up to that level of the mountain, this is all stuff that you have to be able to deal with and process, because you're not immune to it. You and I might deal with it, and we might help others deal with it. But at the end of the day, I got to be in my own head when the camera's not on, we're doing this podcast, or when, you know, I gotta feel the clothes fit differently. I gotta be almost have anxiety sometimes in the gym, knowing I'm one of the biggest, strongest dudes in my gym, but not actually feeling like it in the moment. So I think it's something everybody deals with, because I've heard pros who are 300 pounds say they feel the same things I just described. So, you know, I'm sure all of us have screws loose. Some psychologists would assess us and be like, you know, what you're doing with your lifestyle isn't healthy. No one said it was, but, you know, just bringing some awareness to it, because we do have a lot of younger listeners maybe thinking about cycles, or they're already into it and they're early on. Like, if you feel small when you're off and it almost feels like depressive, like that's normal. That's how it goes. I mean, it's like Superman giving away his powers for like 8 to 12 weeks. Like, he's not Superman anymore.
100%. I didn't even think to comment on that, because we've been doing it for so long that I have just kind of intuitively learned to just deal with it. And it's funny that you mentioned like not going to nationals, because I went to the Olympia, and I scheduled my cruise around my Olympia trip. I was like, I cannot go to the Olympia on this cruise, because it's a mind fuck anyway, being around like the best of the best, and seeing people that you see online or know online or whatever. But when you then feel like a shell of what you're capable of too, it would be such a bummer. So I'm full transparency, I wouldn't have gone. I went full blown, like still fully on cycle. So I'm right there with you. And then there is this weird, man, it almost feels like people are going to see you in the gym, people that normally see you in the gym, and they're almost going to you almost feel like they're wondering like what happened to you, or like you're not living up to the standard that you've already set for yourself. And it's just totally crazy. Like, these people probably don't even notice any difference, or don't even take the time to think about your individual scenario. But 100%, my whole cruise, I typically will wear at some point, have a sleeveless shirt on in the gym. I like to wear like big, like 4X shirts, 5X shirts, but like cut the sleeves off of them. And that's usually what I train in. And then the whole time I'm on a cruise, I just wore hoodies, because I just I didn't want people to see it, and I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see what it looked like in the mirror and be deflated. I'm like, you know what? I'm just here to do a job. I'm here to train. I need to hit these numbers. And that's it. But it can absolutely be depressive, because it hits you from all angles. It hits you out in real life. Like I said, like your sex drive is going to be less. The desire to train is probably going to be less. And like you said, it's maybe not the top end sets, but that top weight that you used to do for 3 sets, you're probably only doing it for 1.
Yeah.
So for me, one of the feelings that I get when I'm full blown on a cycle is I just feel like a brick shit house in every aspect of my life. Like I feel like a bull in a china shop in everything that I do. And then you're on this cruise, and all of a sudden it's real easy to start to feel like a mouse. Um, so all of those things, we all feel that. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you've been around some of the best, myself the same. Um, I like to name drop a little bit, but I'll never forget. I remember in 2019, I went to Germany with the animal team, and I'm there, with Derek Lunsford, Evan Centopani, to name a few. And Evan was like fucking 320 or something, dude. Like I could not believe how big he was. And he was walking around in like all these like baggy clothes, like loose, huge baggy clothes. And I'm talking to him at one point. I'm like, man, like, what are you eating? What are you taking? Like, what's up with the hoodies? Like all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'm heavy right now, but like, I've been on a cruise and I didn't bring any of my stuff with me on this trip. So I just feel small, man. I just don't want anybody to see it. And I like here we all are at the rest of us in the booth, and we're like, bro, Evan is fucking enormous. Like, what the fuck? People are coming up to him like just blown away, like trying to get photos with him. And here he is in his mind, like shying away and not even wanting to take photos with people because he feels small. So that was enlightening for me. That has stuck with me ever since, because I'm like, man, if this guy, I see objectively what this guy looks like. So if he feels like this, man, we're always going to feel like this no matter what. So yeah, it's a good point to bring up because it's something that we all deal with. And, especially coaching, like, coaching and having people's health as a priority. You put guys through cruises and you get the messages like, man, I just feel so small. And it's like, man, I hear you. I get it, but it's just part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to override your feelings. That's where, logic, like I said, I
Yeah.
can logically dissect everything I've said about how I feel, but it doesn't take away that in the present, this is how I feel. I go into the store, I feel like I'm the smallest person in there, when in logically reality, pound for pound, I'm probably one of the biggest when it comes down to muscle mass in any
Yeah.
grocery store. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like it is. It's just a total mind warp that you have to really, make sure you're doing your mental work and strengthening over time, because, um, I've seen guys who they've just perpetually stayed on longer and longer and longer to the point where they're just never off anymore. And you're gonna pay the piper at some point for that. So, um, bringing awareness to it, that question kind of opens it up. So,
Yeah, it's a good one.
and it's, pertains to me right now because I'm walking through it right now. Like
Yeah.
it's, literally making a decision not to go on a trip because of, how I would look around other bodybuilders is just like, nah, I'll just stay in my bubble.
Yeah. All right, I got one. So I thought this was an interesting one. So I saw like kind of a conversation or debate going on of like in terms of warm-ups or how someone gets to their top set. And the question was, do you do low rep feeder sets just to feel the weight and get up to a top weight? Or do you do higher volume warm-ups where like maybe you do 20, 15, 12, 10, and then get to your top weight?
Typically,
So I'm sure you're doing this some scenario where there's both. So
yeah.
just talk through them. Like in which case, in which scenario is each appropriate?
Well, if I'm doing something that's going to probably tax my CNS, like squats, deadlifts, any sort of hinge movement, it's going to be the first one where I'm decreasing the reps as the loads go up, and I'm just touching weights. So my CNS isn't like shocked by what the working weight is.
Yeah.
So, say I'm working up to 495 on stiff legs. That's going to look like 135 for 8, 225 for 5,
Yeah.
315 for 3 to 4,
Yeah.
405 for 2,
Yeah.
455 for 1 to 2, right into 495. Now, if I'm doing something maybe like where I'm doing incline dumbbell press, I might spend some time at the lower weights, but doing more reps, depending on where that exercise is in my training. If I've already done several movements, I don't need it. I need one touch set to get the movement pattern down, and I'm good. But if it's like early, you know, even like a cable fly, if I open with that, then I'll probably do a couple sets of like 10 to 12 just to like get me in it mentally, get the joints moving, get the muscles moving. Just, it's more of just like a active warm up too, you know, getting the mind and body ready for what's about to come this whole session. And then I think that I got into it with some couple people on Dante's post about volume recently, because there seems to just be this issue with interpretation and perception of what volume actually is. There are people who are on the side of, if you do any rep you do counts towards your total volume, whereas where Dante and DC and myself and Dusty and a lot of people, we come from the logic of, if it's something I've already done in the gym, it doesn't count. I'm only counting, so all that deadlift example, I don't count all that work that I do to get to 495, because 495 is my set. I don't care about all those reps. Yeah, the muscle might be being worked, but it's sub-maximal. It's not inducing hypertrophy. Me doing one rep of 455 to get to 495 is not volume that my body can't recover from, especially if I'm going to take 3 to 5 more minutes before I do that work set. That's just how I've always chose to perceive it. Now, if you're on the other side and you think every rep you do counts towards your total volume, and you're one of these people that says you do like 30 sets, that's great for you. I'm not going to argue with you, but I also don't look at things like that. And you clearly don't look at things how I look at them. So I only count my work sets. Anything that's a warm-up does not count towards what I do in the gym.
I'm the same way. I can't even believe that there are people that do that, but it's not, like you said, it's not even worth a debate or an argument, because it's just two different worlds. I didn't even realize that people are doing that.
Yeah, that it's very, you don't realize until you see that how many people actually do. Because there were people like arguing with Dante that like, you're doing 27 sets, and it's like, you know, he does 6 or 8.
Yeah.
Doesn't count what he's already done 2,000 times before. Like, how many times have we put 135 on a bar for any movement, squats, bench, deadlift? I'm never counting that.
Yeah. No. And then even, all right, so like the original question was like some of these like lower rep feeders or higher volume stuff. You did a good job of explaining it. Like if it's going to be one of these bigger movements, you know, even like a hack squat or something, or a leg press, like if I'm doing, you know, if I'm going to end up with 10 plates aside on a leg press, I might do 1 for 10, 2 for 8, 3 for 6, and then I might just do 1 or 2 all the way up to 10. But then on the flip side, and I'm not counting any of that until I get to like a real set that I'm bringing fucking right to failure. Basically, that's how I'm pretty much defining a work set. I'm not counting any of that. I do 2 real sets on a leg press. That's it. I'm not counting any of those other ones. But then even with a smaller movement that has more, let's say, more work within the warm-ups, like something for shoulder, like a lateral raise, for example. I'm never going to do a 3 rep warm-up set. I have a lack of a mental connection to that muscle. So all of them, and I'm not trying to move 495 on as a lateral raise. Like it's not a huge movement. So all of my warm-ups are probably going to be 10 or 15 plus. Even with that said, I'm not counting those. I could do 6 sets of 20 as warm-ups and then do 3 real sets that I bring to failure. And like you said, there's something new in the gym. It's a new stimulus. Like, and I'm only going to count 3 of them. So I guess the big argument is it's such a silly thing, because I saw Dante's post. And I guess almost seems like he kind of indirectly like him and Mike Israetel are going to go head to head, like in terms of volume. And it literally is just semantics.
It's interpretation. That's all. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like you telling me something's red and I say it's blue. And it's like, you believe it's red, I believe it's whatever. Fuck. Like, the end result is we all want more muscles. So like, and this is kind of part of a bigger problem with the online world right now, is that we're creating all these minute arguments and disagreements and even topics like this. You're just spinning the web when what we do is very, very simple. And that's why I always tell my clients, like, zoom out. Are you training as hard as you possibly can every session? That's all you got to do, man. For years, none of this stuff was available to us. You remember, like, we didn't have this discussion. Like, Instagram wasn't even where it is today. Like 8 years ago, you couldn't even, the stories weren't a thing. It wasn't an education platform, really. It was just meant for pictures.
Yeah.
So you kind of didn't really have to worry about how much volume you were doing or weren't doing. You just went to the gym and tried to train as hard as you possibly could and leave the gym smoked.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's also with the way that the online platforms are now, Instagram, especially like the bodybuilding community within Instagram, it has become very tribal. And it's like, I'm high volume, I'm full range of motion, I'm low volume, high intensity, like all these things. And it's like, if all of these people like just came and sat down in a controlled fashion and spoke and articulated what they actually thought was required to become a more muscular bodybuilder, everyone would arrive at nearly an identical definition. But if everyone just agrees, it becomes even more saturated than it already appears. And there's no way to separate yourself and sell your RP training app or whatever. If you don't have an app that tells you that you can do 30 sets for back at 2 RIR, like, that's a branding method is what that is. Like, none of that matters. Like, none of that is anything that bodybuilders haven't been doing for 50 years. What it is a marketing tool. And so they brand it, they put it over here, they hope X number of people come and join their tribe, and then they represent them online. And it's like, okay, what are we really talking about? We're talking about how much we need to grow as bodybuilders. I think if we all pulled apart all the extra shit that we're talking about and counting warm-ups and reps in reserve and all this bullshit, it's like we all kind of fall at the same thing, that it's like, one way or another, you need to do more than what you have previously. And all of that work needs to be right around or right to or right beyond failure, depending on how advanced you are and how big you want to be.
That's all it is, man. And like, to the RP or the RIR, not even the crowd, but just using some of their observations. Like, for example, my warm-ups, 405 for 2 reps. I can do 405 for like 12, probably more.
Right.
So that's RIR 13. Why would I count that? That doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Like, I'm tuned in, don't get me wrong. I treat my warm-ups like a work set because I'm mentally getting ready. But at the same time, like, I have been pulling 405 for 16 years. Like, it's gotten progressively easier for me to do. Don't get me wrong, it's still 405 pounds. And, I did an RDL and snapped my hamstring on it recently. So I always give it respect. But at the end of the day, I'm not adding new tissue with things I've done for that long. So that's why I look at the volume the way I do. What am I putting in work on my work sets? I was a low volume guy up until post USA's. Now do I get to be team high volume? No, I'm team whatever is best for me to improve my physique. I'll probably be going back to lower volume because Jake's starting prep soon. So you're going to do a little bit of everything. The pendulum of extremes, like everyone, like, I don't know why Mike Menzer came up all of a sudden online and he's trending. The dude's
Right.
been passed away for decades, and
Right.
he hasn't competed since the '80s. Why is his name under the getting tossed around and
Right.
people are bashing him? Like,
Right.
just some of these trends that start up, it's like, are you guys just bored? Like, you have
Yes.
nothing else to do but create just grenades and land on them, and we all have to argue about it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
but yeah, like you nailed it perfectly. Like, everybody at the end of the day, to build muscle, you're training just before, at, or just past failure. You're gonna all your working sets are falling somewhere into there. And I
That's
think
it.
guys, over time, you instinctively develop your own interpretation of reps in reserve. In prep 2 weeks out, I have an idea of what I'm trying to do, but I'm also, my shows in 2 weeks, I'm not taking my sets past failure to absolute failure like I
Right.
did when I was younger. I have an idea of like, here's the line. I don't need to cross it at this point of my process because it's not going to help me. Could I do it? Yeah, absolutely. I could take it way further than I do. I think that's something you learn with years in the gym. I mean, I can remember days being younger where it was like I would my form would break and I would keep going because it was like a mental
Oh,
thing. I'm gonna outwork
100%.
everyone. So
100%.
reps in reserve is something like, I don't think you need to teach new people that. You need to just let them lift weights for years and have gym memberships and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, all good points.
Um, so kind of piggybacking off that first question I asked, um, off season, obviously a time of, especially if you've done, say, you've done a prep and you've been sliced, you've experienced that life of vascularity, hardness, everything's changing every day. You look good. Off season, how do you mentally deal with being softer, fluffy, not seeing the vascularity the way you did, not seeing the hardness to cuts? How do you process that?
It is tough. Especially I at this point, I've seen it so many times. I've lived through it so many times. I really believe that when we're, and I'm talking like for enhanced male bodybuilders, when you're stage peeled and not just like, oh, he looked good or oh, he was in shape, like when you have your entire bodybuilding community leave comments on your pictures that you were fucking peeled at your show, your glutes are dug out from one side of your cheek to the other. Um, there's a level, like you're at such a low level of body fat that I think that there comes like almost a mental disorder a little bit. Like there's like a neuroticism that comes with that takes a little bit to dissipate, and it takes longer for some than others. Um, but the big thing is you just have to shift to what the long-term goal is, and it's not easy. I've struggled with this myself. Like you're wondering if you're putting on the weight too soon, if it's coming on too fast, if you're getting fat all of a sudden. But you just have to remember that, like, literally the moment that you get off stage, one, you're still a bodybuilder, so you have to live within a certain structure. It can be much more flexible than the final weeks of contest prep needed to be. But at the end of the day, the goal, the moment you get off stage, is to be as big as you possibly can so that you can be a bigger bodybuilder the next time, because bigger is better. Like there's not going to be many people that are listening to this show that have the size box checked off and they just need to refine things. Like there's this, like, we almost tiptoe around it that for 95% of competitors, better means bigger. Like you're not going to look dramatically different or really improve that body part that you need to improve by just getting back to the same off-season weight that you were at last year. Like you need to blow that off-season weight out of the water. It needs to be 20 pounds up, because after you diet, after you account for like water weight, whether you're using diuretics at the end or whatever, Like if you're 20 pounds heavier than you were last off season, that might leave you 6 or 8 pounds heavier on stage than last time. And then you look different. Then you look like you really improved. But like worrying about, am I getting chubby? Am I losing the lines? My photos aren't going to do as well, engagement wise, all this stuff. We're all going to feel that. I get that. And like you said about the other topic in terms of being on a cruise, like I'm not going to call anybody that feels that a pussy. I have felt that every time I've competed to some degree, but we have a million thoughts running through our head, especially post show. We turn into almost like maniacs. And it's like, what voice do you feed? What voice are you going to put the most weight and thus your actions behind? Like the voice that wins needs to be the one that's like, my goal is to be a bigger and better bodybuilder next time. So that starts now. That starts with me getting back to a weight and a body fat percentage that is productive for me to fucking kick ass in the gym, because everything I want to do starts with me driving my training performance up in the gym beyond where it's ever been. With that, the food will drive your body weight up to a place that it's never been. And at the end of the day, at the end of the next prep, you'll be a better bodybuilder because of it. It's difficult pretty much every single day at multiple times a day. You're going to look at yourself and be like, oh, the cuts are gone, the lines are gone, the vascularity is gone, whatever. But it can't be the prevailing voice that gets to determine what your next actions are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, your why has to be stronger than your feelings. That's what it comes down to. And same thing with the first, question, just kind of in revert, like your why, my big picture why has to be stronger than me feeling small. Same thing for this particular scenario. Like, you've highlighted it well in the past couple episodes. Fat loss is pretty much the easiest thing we have to do as bodybuilders, honestly. Like, it's really not that hard. I mean, there's work that goes into it, don't get me wrong, but it's certainly a lot more achievable in a short amount of time than putting on muscle. You can't rush new tissue onto your body and then get it to stay. Like, that's a whole process that needs months of consistency to achieve. So, one thing to do is, if you're feeling that way, look at it as a positive. That means you're heading in the right direction to being better. And this is the path you have to walk. For me, that one's never been an issue, because I'm so stoked to be, not necessarily like I was burnt out or tired of prepping, but I'm just ready to train hard again, because down the stretch of prep, my training takes a big hit. It's not as fun. Obviously, it's not supposed to be. You're getting in shape, trying to dehydrate yourself for 5 minutes on stage. You're certainly not obsessed with performance at that point of the process, which is what I love. That's where I want to get back to as soon as I can. So for me, I don't have any body dysmorphia, if you want to categorize it as that, about, not being, I've proven to myself that I can get skinned out, peeled out of my mind. I have that card in my deck at all times. When it comes time to play it, I just it's all right. I've switched my mindset. I think best advice I can give people with that is, you have to be two bodybuilders in one. You have to be an off-season version of yourself, and you have to be the prep version of yourself. They're pretty similar. They're not this dichotomy, but there is unique traits about each one. For me, like, just even a lot of the habits, like, I don't really take pictures of myself in the off season. In prep, you're taking more pictures. You're looking at yourself a lot more in the mirror. I don't really look at myself much. When I check in is probably the only time I really spend looking at myself in the off season, because to me, I'm a project. I'm a construction project that's so far away from completion. I don't even care what it looks like right now, because it doesn't matter. I just have to do the work. So I'm not one of these guys that, like, I have abs, but I don't care if they're sharp and my intercostals are showing. Like, it's just not something I'm worried about. if anything, it's the opposite for me, as you can see with the first one. Like if I'm smaller, I'm probably having to work harder mentally, but in a prep, I can at least channel the mindset of my job right now is to get as peeled as possible. That's all that matters. And in the off season, my job is to get as big as I can and put on as much muscle tissue as I can before my next prep.
I think, like you said, the mindset is that you have to channel off-season version of you, and almost like, man, for some people, I know this has never been my thing. I know some people love to like watch YouTube videos of people that they look up to, or, whatever. Like, go watch some of these guys that were full blown, like some of the guys that are legends of bodybuilding. They got to that point because they were enormous in the off season. They ate tons of food and they trained like savages in the off season. So lean into that. Like, don't look at it like it's a burden, or, it's your downtime, or it's your off season. It's a bummer. I'm not shredded. Like, lean into it and embrace that. Like, you get to be the biggest, baddest motherfucker in the gym, or anywhere that you go when you get to a certain point. Like you said, everywhere you go, when, like in the off season this past year, everywhere that I go, I went to the beach. My girlfriend would be like, man, like all these guys, like everybody's looking over at you. I have guys coming up to me, dude, what the fuck are you eating? Grocery store, no matter where you go. Like, so lean into that. Like, that in itself is, I honestly, I've come to enjoy that a lot more than being like a prep bodybuilder.
Same.
To where, like you said, like, enjoy going up a shirt size, or, feeling big even in a hoodie. Like, when you get compliments, about your legs and sweatpants or any of these things, like, lean into that stuff. Lean into being somebody that is just constantly shoving down tons of food. And every family or social event that you go to, people are like, man, chicken and rice again, huh? They're like, yeah, motherfucker, this is what I do. Like, lean into it and embrace that, because that is just what's going to make you a better bodybuilder. And like you said, like, other than my check-in photos, I looked better this off season than I ever had. So I would take an occasional gym photo or something, or have my girlfriend take a gym photo. But for the most part, it's like the off season is more so just like the process. So like what I was saying before, very similar almost to being on a cruise. Like, especially you guys that, maybe you live in the Northeast, or, parts that the weather changes, man, like, put a hoodie on and like blow it out. Like, eat enough food to where you look enormous in a hoodie, and go into the gym and shock people with the weights that you're moving around. And there's something to that, man. There's a lot of fun and a lot of pride can be taken in being that guy. And then, when it's time to prep and get shredded, you will be better in that form because you took this other season seriously.
Absolutely, man. Like, I just think, social media definitely creates a huge issue with how we look. Ladies, you guys have societal standards and norms to adhere to. I shouldn't say adhere, that are imposed on you. That we as males don't necessarily have quite as much. So my advice to the females who need size but who are struggling, with body image, or being soft and bigger and not being lean and having abs and all that, is put it in your mind that the girl that can cope with being softer and bigger and wear baggy shirts and train her face off is probably going to be the girl whose name is called as an overall, or who does very well and places well and improves season to season. And who's also going to have the most optimal internal markers and health along the way too, because I've seen a lot of people who look great year round on the female side, but are absolutely destroyed hormonally, haven't had a period in 5 years. Like, it's a nightmare. Trust me, like, Instagram is a highlight reel. Remember that. Dudes, same thing. Don't get caught seeing what X and X guy's doing, or this guy's doing, or that guy's doing. Like, run your race. I don't believe that comparison is the thief of joy. I think it's a perception. I compare myself to everybody, not in a way of like to make myself feel bad, but to keep myself humble about where I'm at. Like, yeah, I might get compliments about being big, and I know I'm bigger than I was, but where am I trying to go? I'm not as big as I need to be competitive and contend on a national stage yet. So I need to be bigger. Again, you always have to revert to what your why is. It's a matter of seasons. I talked about this on my story the other day. Like, you're lethargic, you're full, you don't want to do much. You're definitely not food focused in the off season. But guess what? I bet you're training like an ox. And if you love that part of it, you're having a lot of fun. Prep, you're lean, you're hard, everything's changing every day, something's new. You're looking in the mirror a lot more, you're practicing your posing because you're not as restricted from being heavy. Your training performance is slowly declining through that prep if you're getting properly conditioned. I don't care who you are, everybody experiences it. So it's a pendulum. Remember how you felt in the depths of an off season when you're in prep and you complain about hunger. Remember how you feel in off season when you complain about being full. Remember how hungry you were in your last prep. It's all about using these tools to mentally get you through, because this is just it. Bodybuilding is extreme. When we talk about it from a competitive standpoint, if you're just doing it as a lifestyle, it's a great way of life. I think it's probably the best way you could live. But when you throw competition into the mix, then it becomes a mental game that you have to get good at and be strong to persevere. So, my advice, I wish, I miss Detroit for the only reason is I always trained in a hoodie. I heard Big Ron talk about that the other day. He's like, I was covered up 8 months of the year. I didn't care what I looked like. It's like,
yeah,
I think if today's bodybuilders could take more of what the guys back, they didn't care in the off season. That was just accepted that you were going to get big and soft and eat a lot of food and train and have fun. That's all it should be. And if it's not for you, you should probably reevaluate if you actually want to do all this. Because if it's making your life that much, I fucking love the off season, man. That's my favorite time.
Me too.
Nothing gets me more jazzed up than just feeling like my blood is just going to spill out of my body from the gym and I'm just swole. I don't like the eating, but that's just part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of what I was trying to say too. And like another part of it, I mean, not to sound like Andrew Tate on here, but like, there's something to be said, like as a man, at least. Again, I'm mostly I'm just talking to the guys. But there's something to be said for being just a bigger, stronger man. Like I feel way better about myself when I'm big and strong and capable than when I do at 6 weeks out. I feel fucking vulnerable at 6 weeks out. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
so it's just a different mindset. I feel indestructible when I walk around in the off season at my peak body weight, like just like a brick shit house. So I mean, I would just try to lean into that. If you're struggling with that, man, like just lean into just being big and powerful.
It's a lot of fun.
It's the best. I'm fucking 2 weeks in and I'm already like, man, fuck, I didn't get big enough.
Dude, until that was because in my prep, and you and I were talking, like, until you start to get that like early level of sliced, prep isn't all that fun, dude.
No, I sent my updates to Justin the other day and he was like, we're in a good spot, but you're about to enter the skinny, fat, fugly phase. So be prepared mentally.
Yeah, that's a thing.
And like I sent it to my girlfriend and she's like, what the hell does that mean? And I'm like, you have to understand, like, there's the first half of prep basically is like you're burning through your fullness, but you haven't lost any real fat yet. Like you're not lean, but you have no fullness anywhere. So you just look skinny fat.
The frosting of your fat is being like swiped off with fingers.
Yeah. You can't even get into digging it yet. You still have this top layer to get through. And so then like you lose the pop in some of your shots because like the fullness has to go first. Before you can get flat, you have to get rid of the fullness. And before you can get peeled, you have to get flat. So it's like, man, I gotta pull this fun fullness away just for the right to start digging into the fat. So yeah, I look like dog shit right now, but in 18 weeks it'll be good. But
that's what I like. It's all of this that we do is a construction project.
Yeah.
The tapes up, there's shit strewn all over the construction site. Like it's nothing's
Yeah.
when it comes together, it's going to be magnificent.
Yeah.
You just got to go through the steps.
Yeah. All right. Let me see. This might be a quick one. This isn't like super deep or like in a philosophical level, but more like X's and O's. Somebody asked, knowing how important progressive performance is within the same movement or parameters, when the gym is busy, should I wait for the machine I have programmed or find something similar?
This probably depends on you, the individual, and I'm I'm not neurotic, but I am like when I write something out, I like to stick to like it's just a matter of preference. Like, you got 3 sets left. I guess I'll wait. And I'll kind of urge you to hurry up by being right there. But I'm not someone that will ever sub a similar movement. Like if I had to do an incline dumbbell press and there was no dumbbells in the or no benches in the free weight area, I wouldn't just be like, well, I guess I'll just go do Smith machine today. Like I chose this movement in this block on this day for a specific reason. I'm going to wait it out. That's me. That's how I approach it. I don't tell my clients they have to do it that way. Because at the end of the day, I think that's splitting hairs. If you're training hard and doing a movement that's similar, it's okay if it's a one-off. Plus, I'm at the liberty of I create my own schedule. I train when I want to. If I'm in the gym longer, it doesn't impact the rest of my day. So I keep that in mind with people I work with. Like some people only can go to the gym and they only have 90 minutes because they've got kids to tuck in, they got a wife, they got other shit to do. So totally respect that. So I think that question truly comes down to who you are, the individual, and what your situation is. At the end of the day, do I think you're not getting better if you deviate from that movement because it's busy and the piece you need is taken? No, you're still going to get better.
Especially like you said, if it's a one-off thing. Like, you're in an 8-week training block, and for 1 week you had to sub out incline dumbbell for an incline hammer strength. It's fine. Get your hard sets in and move on with your day. Like you said, for me, it's I've only gotten this way since I've been able to coach full time and I can just make my own schedule. I will just go ask people, hey, how many you got left? And generally my rule of thumb is if someone says that they have 3 or more, and depending on what type of tone they gave me when they asked, I will either ask and say, do you mind if I work in? Or, I try not to be this way, but sometimes you get people that answer back with a bit of like entitlement or attitude or whatever. And they'll say, I'm doing 4. And I say, okay, then I'm working in. But if it's someone, so that's 3 or more, I'll usually do that. And then if someone says that they have 2 or less, I'll just say, okay, great. I'll wait. And I'll put my bag down near the machine. That way, if someone else is going to walk up, they know that somebody's waiting. And I'll go fill my water bottle. I'll take a piss or whatever the case is. Go walk around and get some steps in. But it's not worth like being stressed about. Like I've had clients that like WhatsApp me in the gym. And they're like, hey, man, there's a group of 3 guys on the incline Smith, and that's what you had programmed as my 3rd exercise on push day. Like, what should I do? Like, man, like you could just find something else for today. Like, use your brain a little bit. Like you said, like, if it's something like a hammer strength press where it's like each arm is working individually, dumbbell press makes sense. There are things, and then like I would generally just think about it in like what is if I zoom out, to take your phrase, if I zoom out, what is this movement for? Like if I'm doing an upper back row, if I'm doing a chest supported T-bar row and that's taken, like, okay, is there a chest supported hammer strength row? Can I go over and do put my chest to an incline bench and row 2 dumbbells? Like, can I go row the Smith machine? Any of these things would probably be fine for a one-off thing. So I think the big thing is just the effort within your sets. And I would, not to be that guy, but if you're in prep, if you're somewhere like 8 weeks out or less, I would just be mindful of what you're choosing. And
Yeah.
in terms of like the stability and what the total cost might be. But other than that, like 8 weeks out or less, like that's not something people should be thinking about.
No, no. But yeah, I just think
Like as an example, and then not to cut you off, but like if you have um dumbbell lunges or extensions or something like that, and you can't get to it or whatever the case is, like don't go hack squat 6 plates aside.
true. Yeah, again, it does come down to a little bit of common sense.
Yeah, little bit of critical thinking.
There's no rules. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite Chris Aceto lines, is like, there's no rules.
Yeah.
Just make it work. But for me, the fun and the obsession of all this is the progression. So if I've written a training program and I picked and I have Muscle Factory, which has a plethora of pieces for me to use. It's like Candyland for bodybuilders. Yeah, I'll wait it out, because like I got 6 months on this piece, and I got some numbers I want to hit by the end of this for my all-time strength. So, I'll wait it out. But like I said, other people, I would probably recommend, honestly, moving on to something else if it's going to be throw a wrench in your workout. It doesn't throw a wrench in my mental to have to wait a little bit. I know people that are like, they're very militant and very like, they have to keep moving at a certain pace. And it's like, I learned that with Dusty, man. We could like be chilling, talking, having a laugh, and then flip the switch, strap in, and I can pick up 600 pounds. I have that ability. Some people need to stay in the zone or locked in, or, like they're very macho and they're like, can't get on this. Oh, I'm going over there and doing that. Like they got to keep the pace for their intensity levels. And that's fine. You just got to know who you are.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of that. I like to kind of walk around the gym with a dark cloud over my head, to be honest. If I'm training by myself, at least. If I'm training with somebody, I could train without headphones, have a laugh, and then just say, okay, now I'm up and it's time to go. But for the most part, what I enjoy, I like to walk around like within that by myself.
I think by myself, especially in my past prep, because I was mostly alone. I was very like, you'll only catch me listening to music if I am training alone. If I have a partner, I don't have headphones in. I don't need to. I'm with them. But alone, it's a very different approach, even down to the choice of music. Like, what kind of day is it?
100%. 100%.
Is it an Eminem show? Am I listening to him talk about killing his ex-wife? Or is it Lil Jon and the East Side Boys?
Right.
Like, what am I doing today?
Kind of depends on what what you're training to.
100%. Yeah. If it's legs.
Like for me, like if it's like push or arms, it might be like just some like kind of
club music,
fun rap music, right? Like it might be fuck, I don't know. It might be No Ceilings or something, like just something you're gonna bop to. And then if it's fucking back day with RDLs or legs, it might be fucking dark. It might be, like you said, it might be some Metallica. It might be, I like Breaking Benjamin. I like I've been doing Limp Bizkit lately, a lot of Limp Bizkit, like old Limp Bizkit. I like Metallica. I like fucking, the list goes on.
For 2 years straight, every leg day I did, I had Slipknot in my ear. No choice of anything else. Only Slipknot. And then I realized that like that choice and like how Slipknot plays and how I was training at the time, this was like when I was just like failure or death. Like if I can't move the bar, or if I can still move the bar, I can keep going type mentality. I had to throttle back from that because
100%.
Slipknot was fueling that mindset. So
oh yeah.
Guys listening, in the comments below, drop what you like to listen to. You have specific body parts that require specific genres. Now I'm getting older. Sometimes I can't even, there'll be times if I am training alone, but it's like, I don't know, my brain is just too noisy. I'll keep the headphones in, but I'll have to pause the music because it's like,
I've been there.
nothing sounds good in my ear right now.
I bet I get that way. Like maybe I had one set that I've just had thought about the whole week for legs, like on a leg press or a hack squat or something, right? Like just that motherfucker of a set. And all of the music leading up to whatever I'm gonna do before that is like just dark and crazy. And then once this has happened to me a lot. Once I get through that set, like you said, like the music almost sounds like noisy, and it almost makes me like anxious. And
Yeah.
so like I'll get through the fucking like nauseous, and I'll get through like that main set driven by the crazy music, and I had this like hyper emotional response, and then I like that the AirPods will cancel noise, but you don't have to have anything playing, and I'll just sit with them like that.
Yeah. No, I enjoy AirPods are pretty effective. I've never been, well, when I was younger I was, but I don't do the whole over the ear. Do you do
I've done
those?
them. I've done them
I've
for a
done them.
while.
I don't do them anymore just because
I
like
liked them for a long time because I trained near my hometown, and again, like it was such a not strange, but it was such an outlier thing to be bodybuilding.
right.
And like, so it's the middle of winter. I'm tanned because I'm on Melanotan and I'm tanning. I look different than everybody else. And I just felt like they were a signal, like, do not come up and fucking talk to me. Don't come up and say, hey, you getting ready for a show? Hey, how's your diet going? Oh. Like I would just wear the big headphone. I would have a hat, the big headphones over it. And then sometimes, depending what day it was, I would have the hood over that
Oh
too.
yeah.
And it was just like, just leave me the fuck alone. Like, I hate all of you people. I didn't like any of you when I went to high school with you. I don't like you now. Like, just leave me the fuck alone. But I've kind of grown out of that.
Yeah, that's a phase for sure. I had that where it was just like headphones, hat, hoodie, hood up,
Yeah. Yeah.
eyes like this is how I'd walk into the
Yes.
gym.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you almost you can
The,
catch people
the,
when you
the
have
Andy
headphones
Pettit
on.
hat. Yeah.
Yeah. You can catch like I've side-eyed so many people from a bench like this, and I can see them waiting to purchase eye contact. That's their invite to come in and talk to me. And I know that's what they're waiting for. So I'll just stay here the whole
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
until they leave. So
Yeah.
it's you learn different tricks in the gyms over the years to
Oh
like
yeah.
good
Yeah.
conversation. But I think I had one more. Oh, it was on the topic of do you prefer having training partners or do you prefer to train alone?
Mm. That's a tough question to answer. I would prefer to have an killer, reliable training partner. Yeah. Um, those people are exceedingly hard to come by. And then especially because my life, like my schedule is like a whirlwind because I'm not on any schedule. So it's just like I can't expect any normal person to match when I want to train every day. Um, so I've trained alone for so long that I've learned to love it. My girlfriend competes and trains like a fucking animal. And so we'll be in the gym together, not necessarily training the same body part. But so if I need a spot or something or a lift or any of these things, like I just I have her do it. And then we actually train legs together. And she's like the real deal training partner that you would need. So, that would really be the one day that I need it, like somebody to try to pull me out from a hack squat or something, and she'll do it. So I've had awesome training partners, but they're few and far between. So it's tough to say. There's a lot of times where I just don't want to socialize or answer why are we doing it, why are we doing this, or um, even tell someone what total of weights to put on the other side of the machine. Like there's times I just don't want to speak, and I really enjoy listening to the music that I want to listen to and just training at my own pace.
Yeah. Yeah, I can appreciate both. I don't think it has to be either or.
Yeah.
Preference wise, for me, it's going to be having a training partner that's legit. Fortunately, I've been pretty solid with training partners over the years.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's all right.
Yeah, he's all right.
But I have one of my clients, Ryan, who anytime him and I train together, it's like he knows me, I know him, and it's synergy. Jake and I are obviously, he's my current training partner. Like,
yeah,
we'll prioritize my split, my schedule, whatever, to have him there with me, because there's a lot of days where, you know, if you aren't feeling it for yourself, you know, maybe you're just off, you didn't get a lot of sleep, whatever, long push is starting to take its toll. Like, you got a job to do to show up for your training partner. And the way I've always looked at, you know, situations like that is I don't ever want to look weak in someone else's eyes. Like, I don't ever want to be the guy complaining or being like, man, I'm tired today, let's take an off day, or hey man, I'm not gonna make it because I'm sore. Like, I'll never show you that. Like,
yeah,
I gotta be like deathly ill to skip out on a training session.
yeah.
So I use that.
That's a good situation too. Like, younger guy, like you, I'm sure there's a feeling for you where you got to go in and set the standard. Like, you're the standard when you go train with him.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, he's picked me up on days where I was just like off.
Oh, I'm sure.
He trains incredibly hard.
Yeah,
And you know, he's natural. So that's even more
yeah,
feeling. And this
yeah,
dude has no sauce, no gear. You know,
yeah,
so me being on TRT at the dose I am, and for the length of time I will be, is kind of like a challenge to be like, I'm not gonna, you know, I can't be a hypocrite and act like a pussy because I'm off gear. Like, I'm gonna train hard and do what I got to do.
yeah,
I think in prep, it can get hairy, and I can see where you're at. Cause like in prep, you know, it was maybe I'm training after one meal, maybe I'm training after three. I create my schedule, and it's like I ate two meals, thought I was going to go train, took a nap instead. All right, I'll eat after the third. Like, it's just,
yeah,
you have that luxury. You don't really force yourself to go to the gym if you're not absolutely ready.
yeah.
Off season, I keep set times because meal timing actually becomes more important for me in the off season, because if you get it
100%,
put together, dude, good luck.
100%.
But in
That
prep,
you can't have a day that you sleep 12 hours in the off season, because you just will wake up anxious, like, fuck, I'm behind on food already. Like,
worst feeling.
it is the worst feeling.
But so prep training alone, yeah, and it's just like you get in these moods where I like music more in my ears in prep, probably because cardio
Yeah,
versus off season when I'm bigger. I don't know why. I'm more annoyed. So noise in my ears sometimes just gets to me. Maybe because I'm like always inflamed. But and then as far as, you know, to give people advice on how to find training partners, good luck. It's not easy. The more advanced and obsessed you get and climb the ladder, the pool of people that are going to be wanting to be a part of that is going to be very, very slim. And then good luck matching schedules. And if you can do it, it can be great. I mean, I've had, obviously, Dusty levitated me, Ryan, you know, Jake, my current, and then I even had one of my best friends, Vince, was my training partner back in Michigan. All those people have made me better over the years. So,
yeah,
but I've set a lot of PRs by myself too, with nobody else there. So you can't be one dimensional. I think, but yeah, if I had my preference, I'm going to choose to have a training partner who's on par with me. You know, either a situation to where they're a competitor and they understand what like training isn't just a social hour. We're there to do a job. I mean, there's sessions where Jake and I don't even talk.
yeah,
But also, you know, it can be beneficial if you find someone who's not a training partner, but they want to be with you because you force them to level up. So they'll do whatever you do. Maybe not to your strength level, but they're just trying to they're there for you, basically. You're the bodybuilder. You're the one, you decide, like, because I can be a dick when it comes,
me
like,
too.
programming. Like,
Me too.
hey, this is what we're doing. Like with Dusty, I was a soldier. It was like he kind of led
Yes.
the way, and I kind of gave some input here and there. But for the most part, I went in there like, I'm training with Dusty Hanshaw. This is awesome. So,
Yeah.
but with other people, it's been like, hey, I'm gonna put the plan together. If you have stuff you need to do for you, that's cool. You can peel off here or there, but
Yeah.
I'll put it together, or we can at least do it together. Something like that. But so you kind of got to be aligned. I don't think a men's physique guy is going to train with an open bodybuilder. Probably not going to be a match that ends well.
I'm with you. The best training partners that I've had were not competitors. Around, maybe around the same strength on some things. But it was more of just like they wanted to be around you because they felt like you were going to make them better. And like you said, then that can kind of, because as competitors and advanced competitors, like you're going to have a more specialized approach or split, whatever. So I almost feel like it would be more difficult to find an equally, like, I don't know that even if you and I trained in the same gym that we would train together, because we need different stuff. There might be one day a week or something where we link up. Like in my case, I might purposely just abide by whatever you're doing on back day. That way I could come train with you. But for the most part,
I would have followed your leg days. So I
yeah,
think
yeah,
we'd
that
probably
would
make
work.
it work because we just put our heads together and write a plan to where like
Yeah,
Jake and I do that. Like I'm
yeah,
doing no shoulder pressing. He's shoulder
yeah,
pressing. So when he does
yeah,
a shoulder press, I just do an extra chest press. And then we reconvene again. It's like,
yeah. No, it could definitely work, but think like just listen to how much coordination that would take.
I have faith.
Yeah, yeah. No, I would say like in terms like because you brought it up before, like how to find a training partner. If you're someone that consistently goes at the same time or a similar time, your pool is going to kind of start and end with the people that are there at that same time. So I would keep an eye out for that pool that you see every day. Maybe start by asking somebody for a spot. Maybe you see somebody that looks legit, whether it's with their own training or you see them spotting somebody else. Whatever the case is, they have a good physique. Maybe ask them for a spot and then see where it goes from there. But yeah, I think that's everything, man.
Solid.
That's all I
That's
had.
a lot.
Yeah, yeah, we did cover a lot. That was a good one. Yeah, I liked your idea. Leave a comment below if you have particular playlists or so. Like for me, example, I have a leg day playlist that I
Yeah.
only listen to for legs. And then they're my go-to artists for back, etc. So leave us a comment about that. For Tommy Styles, I'm Joseph Pircher. This was a Thinking Man's podcast. Until next time, guys, we are out.